It's funny, I have this, so I just got a new microphone to make these things better, and it's this large, it's a blue mic. It's a large sphere hanging above my monitor. So now I want to look at it to talk, which I suppose is helpful because that's roughly where the camera is, but it's not picking me up.
Valerie, tell the people who we are.
All right, we are Parallelogramophonograph. We are an improv troupe out of Austin, Texas. We've been together for almost 15 years and doing a weekly show for about 14 of those years, 13 of those years. So we've done hundreds of shows. We've performed and taught all over the world. We usually perform at the Hideout Theater here in Austin, Texas, but of course, because of the current worldwide pandemic, the theater is shuttered, but we are still getting together to do improv and talk about improv. And that's what we're doing today. We're talking about improv. And specifically, we are doing a Q&A about producing and directing shows, because each of us individually has produced and directed shows at the Hideout Theater and other places based on our own inspirations. So we all have our cool perspectives to share on that, and we're ready for your questions. I thought it would be nice maybe if we each start out and talk about some of the shows we have directed, and then that'll give people some more basis for questions and things.
Yeah, I'm gonna go run real quick to get some books that I realize I could show off, which might be helpful.
Yeah. Casey, do you want to start with some of your projects?
Yes. Yeah, there's been a lot over the years. Started out like I did not want to be a director. I'll say that. So you kind of know that. Like I started out, I was just like, no, I just want to act. I just want to be in things. Tell me what to do. I'll take it and run with it. And then I ended up falling into directing because there was a couple concepts that I wanted to see become shows, and it didn't really feel like there was, it was kind of weird to be like, take this concept and make it happen the way I think it should happen, like to put that off on somebody. So that's what kind of made me start directing. It was like, well, I guess this isn't going to happen unless I do it. So I think I directed my first improv show in 2007, 2008. Is that right?
I don't know. Sounds good to me.
After school improv. Remember that?
Oh yeah, after school improv.
When we took it to, it was a PGraph format, and then we expanded it to a bigger cast show. So that was kind of a nice, like, little stepping stone. And then I went on to direct improvised Charles Dickens show, a show called Reform School for Wayward Girls, which is all about a bunch of like bad girls in the 70s in like a strict Catholic school. I did a show called Peter Pan and the Great Unknown, which took like Peter Pan before the Darlings come to the island. So it's just like him and the pirates and the Lost Boys and the mermaids and the fairies and all of them, and different adventures there. We did a show called Boy Howdy, which was an improvised 1960s TV Western. Gosh, what are some of the other ones? There's been so many.
You directed Harriet and Adana, right?
Yeah, with Margaret Hunsicker. That was a like set in contemporary times last year. It was about two teen mystery detectives. So kind of like Scooby-Doo if it were like Daphne and Velma, and they were women of 2019 in a like technological sort of like future advanced high school.
Don't forget Orphans.
Oh my God. Thank you, Courtney. One of my all-time favorites. Orphans, the improvised orphan musical. Oh man, Courtney could add in so many because she's been in a lot.
Yeah, Courtney's also done some
stuff with me.
Directed some great shows.
Yes. Yeah, Courtney. Yay, Courtney. Yeah, we did an improvised orphan musical. God, that was freaking insane. We had like 16 people on stage and 2 different musical directors helping out with that show. So fun. There's singing, improvised dancing.
The T. Henry Bodcliffe show.
Oh my God. We did some really weird, absurdist sort of like storytelling.
Yeah. And the Fitzgeralds. It's I'd call that a concept that you directed.
Yeah, there's a show concept called The Fitzgeralds Save the World, where F. Scott and Zelda Fitzgerald, the couple from the 1920s, we reimagined them as assassins and spies. that move in an underworld that's filled with artists of the 1920s who are also living double lives as mercenaries or criminals. And they could travel through time. It was like kind of sketch comedy, kind of improv. And I also directed like scripted plays and written scripted plays and stuff too. But I probably direct improv more than anything else, just because we got really into making fully realized theatrical unscripted productions at the Hideout, especially, and then within PGraph, many concepts.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of like, we kind of started that in 2006, and we just loved it so much, we just kept making more. So Valerie, what are some of the things you've directed?
Yeah, let's see. I have directed A Deed So Dark, which was inspired by murder ballads and folk music. And so it was very dark. And we had a live banjo and harmonica and piano player on stage and improvised murder ballads and folk songs throughout the narrative.
Edward Gorey.
Oh yeah, at that time Gorey, inspired by the works of Edward Gorey, which is also kind of dark and morbid. You may see a theme here. I directed a show called A Doll's House, which was inspired by Roald Dahl. Which
is dark and whimsical.
Yeah. I did another one called Home for the Holidays, which was
all light.
A very holiday kind of planes, trains, and automobiles style romp. What are some of the other ones?
Click, Click, Whir?
Oh yeah, Click, Click, Whir was a steampunk and also had kind of a musical percussive element to it. Is that all?
Probably more, but
we don't have to be
exhaustive. But just to give people an idea of the kinds of stuff we've done. Roy, tell us some of your creations.
Yeah, the main thing is Austin Secrets. It's a show where we're inspired by like secrets that people actually submit to the show or to postsecret.com, and we do scenes inspired by them. I say it's the main one because we're in the 9th season of it. We had all our rehearsals and then the world went into lockdown, so it might be coming virtually at some point if I have the energy to make it happen. But right now it's on hold. I love that show. It's near and dear to my heart. I directed an improvised musical called Death by Musical, an improvised musical horror show that was Margaret Hunziker's idea, and we co-directed that together. And then I've been thinking about this show a lot lately because it's very close to what's happening in the world right now, which is the International Improv Experience.
Funny.
We had groups from around the world submit video challenges to our cast, and then we would improvise our version of responding to that challenge on stage. And that was a lot of fun and a very long time ago.
You've also been involved, like kind of overseen or somehow been involved in the production process of most of what the Hideout does too, as the artistic director.
Yeah, I'm the artistic director of the Hideout, so I've sat in a lot of auditions and helped cast a lot of shows, and then had a very light hand in the other productions as well. Kareem.
Yes, I haven't directed much, but I've had obviously a strong hand in the PGraph stuff. I directed a film noir show years ago, and then a samurai film, or samurai Kurosawa inspired show a few years later, which is what I was going to look for. All my resources, we can talk about that later. I've directed a couple John Stone inspired formats. So there was a run of theater sports that I ended up directing. So a lot of the tools with regards to building ensemble and running rehearsals and having a plan and a schedule and being able to assess what a show needs apply to even show formats that aren't strictly narrative or a specific genre. And I think so for a lot of the PGraph shows I've somehow taken, I think not most, but I've taken a lot of the music and tech side, just because that's the way my brain thinks. I think very musically for some reason, or like I associate genres and tone and feel with music.
We're the same way in that,
Yeah.
you know, or maybe all of us are, but yeah, music is such a huge part of a show.
It's so important. Yeah. So I tend to think about that quite a bit for all the shows that I'm involved in, and I think that's really fun to talk about.
Yeah, for every show run that PGraph's done, there's usually one song that we either come out to or plays a prominent part in the show. Whenever we hear it, it immediately puts us in the mindset for that particular show.
Yeah.
I feel like I take a lot of part in we all weigh in on everything when it's a PGraph show, for sure. We all have specific tastes. We're all artsy people outside of improv. But I really like the visual components of a show production, and especially like thinking about what we can wear and stuff. Yeah, for me, I have like music or a visual that kind of hits me really hard, and then like the show develops often from that. Oh, it's our French farce music.
Yeah, I usually have kind of a tone, and that's both like musically and visually related, that I'm like inspired by when I think of a show. Like,
I'm pretty like straightforward. Like normally it's an idea that's almost fully formed, and I'm like, oh, that's a stupid idea. We got to do it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's start getting some questions. Any questions people have about directing a show as an individual, or if you want to, talk about creating a show as an ensemble, we're happy to talk about any of that.
Yeah, or any questions about theatrical stuff versus other stuff. I forgot to mention that I also directed and created a show called Consensual Hex, which was a dirty Harry Potter show. Not Dirty Harry Potter, but I'm saying that because Kinsey.
It's about Dirty Harry doing gardening.
Kinsey's in the comments and watching, and she's seen that show a couple times, I think. Oh, she said it was her introduction to improv.
You also directed the Dirty Jane Austen.
Yes, I also did a filthy Jane Austen show. It was rated. These are rated R theatrical improv shows, which are very fun.
So while we're waiting for questions about that to come in, Jay asked earlier just about like our tech setup. And I have a straight up like document, but just to give you an idea, what we're doing right now is we're obviously chatting on Zoom because there's a big watermark on Twitch that I can't turn off unless we spend a lot more money. And then Zoom has, if you have a pro account, Zoom has built-in support for live streaming to places like Twitch or YouTube or Facebook, and so I'm just doing that. So it's nothing super technical wizardry involved. I have a more complicated setup that I want to move us to, but I haven't honestly had the time, and I'm not sure that my laptop can handle it. So Zoom is great because it actually handles the streaming on their servers. So my computer isn't connecting directly to Twitch. It's all handled somewhere in Zoom land. So when my computer inevitably locks up, the stream keeps going.
Nice. Someone asked, are there any tips specific to directing a show that's virtual?
Oh, man.
Well, we haven't done it.
Yeah, we haven't directed a virtual show yet.
I mean, I guess when we have guests, we kind of give them guidelines for how we like to play. And then a lot of it, we're just figuring it out in the moment. I think maybe for directing a virtual show, I'd say start out playing with people that you played with before, because that's going to make the learning curve better. So you won't have as many miscommunications. If you can start out that way and then bring in people you haven't worked with, that would be my suggestion.
I mean, for the stuff we've been doing online, we have not, for the most part, we haven't created new shows or new like we're kind of just taking a thing that we know as a known quantity and adapting it slightly or putting restrictions on it. So we don't have super specific things for that right now, as we've only been doing it 3 weeks.
Yeah,
give us a break.
We're
like,
doing.
How would you do it though? I think it would be important to basically get your cast to have the same kind of vocabulary of
Mhm.
techniques and how they approach things. Like what is turning your camera in
Yeah.
fair game? Are we gonna do like weird edits like this? How are we gonna move
that's
in
true.
and out of frame? What's our lighting situation look like? Basically getting it so that our 4 or 10 unique stages are have a consistent look and feel.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you want to
I
rehearse basically.
Yeah, I mean, I know we did kind of immediately put some guidelines or some ground rules in place because we've been doing the performing together so long. We kind of have a sense of what will work and what the audience will need to be immersed in what we're doing. And I think we almost immediately decided on turning the cameras off once we moved to a format where it's just like one-on-one scenes or 3 people in a scene.
Yeah.
Ignoring the medium of being on camera, we pretty quickly decided that if you've edited, you've left the scene, then you turn your camera off. To make it easier.
Cool. So, and Jay was asking about Kareem putting the music in, and Kareem's just sharing sound through Zoom.
So Zoom lets you share your computer video, or you can just choose to share the audio. So I literally just have Spotify playing on my computer, which then gets shared to the Zoom meeting. You have to mess with the levels a little bit so it doesn't blow out all the speakers, the people speaking. But I kind of experimented with that for a little bit, however many weeks ago, and found the levels that are pretty good overall.
The thing you don't want to do is just play music in your own
in the
space,
air.
because Zoom doesn't know how to handle it and will make it.
Yeah, it gets this weird warble effect. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, because it has like automatic kind of sound dampening based on who's speaking, since it's designed for meetings. So
it just confuses it.
It will take out the backbeat of songs and stuff, which is super strange.
Zoom does some weird. I mean, I don't want to get too distracted on the technology stuff, but we did a show set in Rome, and I had this hilarious bit where I said, "Let's get ready to rumble in the Coliseum," and I screamed for a really long time. And that's when I learned that if you make the same noise for more than like 2 seconds, Zoom just cuts it out as background noise.
Yep, there we go.
Almost immediately, Casey.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. All right, we got some questions. So Kenzie asked me, based on what I said about Deeds So Dark, can I talk about what the process was like incorporating an improvising musical ensemble? How do you build ensemble between the players and the musical players? And I think that's a great question. And at the Hideout, we're lucky to have a lot of really talented piano players, and some of them play other instruments as well, but they're used to improvising and they perform with us a lot. So when you're working with someone like that, it's pretty easy because they're just great at what they do. People like Anna or Tosin, or Natalie, like they're just also so good and so easy to work with. It's almost like if you just follow them, you don't have to worry. But with A Deed So Dark, I took some musicians who didn't have a lot of improvised music experience.
And they were intimidated by the whole concept. And we were like, no, it'll be fine, we promise.
But I knew they were really good at their instruments. And as I've started to learn more about music, I realized that I always thought music was very intimidating and I couldn't even imagine how anyone could improvise music. But as I started learning piano, I realized that music has its own rules and beats and kind of like magic spells in a way that make things work, of like chord progressions and, and so it's not as impossible as it seems when I didn't know anything about music. But just basically giving them a chance to work with the cast and having a cast who's just very open and generous and willing to follow the musicians goes a really long way towards that. If you have more than one musician, letting them play with each other and kind of feel out when one leads and one follows. And just getting as much time with the musicians and the players all working together. And if someone has an idea, try it out and figure out if it's going to work.
And being supportive, I think a big thing at that stage in the rehearsals, because I was in the show, so I remember what it was like being in the room. at least from my perspective, like I have such a heightened awareness of like who in the room needs generosity and who might be the most intimidated. So it's like at that point, the musicians were not freaked out, but like they clearly had concerns. It was like, all right, all the improvisers on stage, we're going to do whatever we can to make them know that they are fucking rock stars. And like, we're going to make anything work and do whatever they need. Like the rehearsals were kind of their time.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, you know, a collaborative thing, but it was like, that was the big concern initially, or the big focus, just to like get them on board and to kind of get their wings.
And
basically.
I think that show especially worked because we were doing kind of folk music, which, you know, if you grow up in America, it's kind of like bred into you, like what folk songs are like, and there's almost like a formula to them. And so that made it easier. And then also as a director, being really clear about what the tone and style of the music is to go with the show. Like with any kind of directing, you know, having a clear enough vision that you can give it to people, and then they can find the discoveries within that vision. Because if you're too open, people are like, I don't know what you want. I don't know what I'm doing. Right. But you also don't want to be so controlling that people can't make discoveries and find joy in the moment.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. We often don't want to be too critical of people's choices in improv, because we're taught very early on that there are no mistakes in improv and that everything is a gift. And that's true. But your job as a director, and the reason you're putting on a show, is that you have a very specific tone and style that you're going for. And so I have a really hard time giving people notes sometimes, because I can see on their faces, or at least I project on their faces, that they're like taking it super personally. And in order to get myself over that, I give a speech at the beginning where I'm just like, the notes I give you are not my judgment on you as a person, or even as an improviser in general. These are notes specifically for making the show that's in my head a reality. And whether, to the extent they apply outside of this show, is an added bonus. I'm just trying to make the show that I signed up to direct happen, basically.
Cool. We have Let's Get Breakfast asked or said, I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on casting and auditioning. It feels like it might be impossible to have an unbiased method when you know so many people in the community. How do you compare people when you have different levels of knowledge about them? It's a great question.
That's a really good question, and it's interesting. I guess it depends on what your goals are as a director. If the show is just like a fun romp, it's a little bit easier to kind of not cast it, but sometimes it's easier to maybe like cast your friends. If you have like a wiggly idea of the show, I think it will make it harder to cast the show with a focus in mind, and you might lean more biased because you're just like, I don't know, I like that person. But if you really know the tone and style you're going for, and you set up exercises specifically in the audition to play with those things, then you can get an idea for how people play. And like sometimes I'll have somebody I love working with, and I've worked with them in another show, but when they come into that audition and they can't play that tone or style, that makes it really hard to cast them, honestly. And we've all had the experience of being like, well, I think they'll catch up with some people, and it's like, then you end up, if you put somebody in the cast and they're not very adaptable, or they're not a good fit, and you think that they'll get there, sometimes it can tank the entire show. It's like, you don't want to believe that that's true, but it makes it bad for that person as well, because they cannot do what you want them to do. When I realized that, I do a lot of film commercial type work, and I used to get upset when I wasn't cast, but then I've been cast in a couple things where later when I was on set, I was like, I am not the right person for this thing.
Not the right person. Yeah.
And you can want to be the right person, you can try really hard, but if you can't deliver what they need from you, it's a terrible feeling.
It's a waste of everyone's time.
And you just feel so bad. So I think, sometimes it goes for casting people too before they're really ready for an experience. So people be like, no, put me in. But it's like, if you put somebody into a certain kind of show before they're ready, it can suck so much confidence out of them, because they can be trying so hard and wanting so badly to succeed. Yeah. But at the same time, sometimes you give people a chance and they really, really rise to the occasion. So you're always, calibrating it. It's hard to be perfect. You have to let yourself be wrong learn from it and to tweak your process. I mean, we always
and to not let your idea of someone as a performer be static. Like, if someone signs up for an audition, be willing to you should audition with the anticipation of being wowed by everyone. Like, don't try to let go of those biases and just set up those exercises. Well, first of all, improv auditions, I want to mention, the way we do them, it tends to be like half-hour blocks of like 6 to 8 people, because you can't just like audition someone solo for 3 minutes the way film and TV auditions are. Like, that just doesn't make sense at all for what we do. So you want to have something that makes them approximate or hit the tone you want, even if you don't know exactly yet what the show is. You should have a rough idea. So yeah, if you can make sure that they can at least are game for trying out those things. If there's anything weird about the show or very specific that you think could be a sticking point, as long as it's safe and professional to do an audition setting, having them try that just to see if their game is really helpful. And the other main thing for auditioning is you want to see how people take direction. Like, if there's someone you love working with, but that when you give a direction, they kind of like seize up. Now that's gonna, it gets to what Roy was saying about how he's giving directions to make the show be what he wants it to be. And if you're seeing that someone doesn't take direction or tries to argue or whatever, then that's a good thing to try to find out in the audition room. And that is pretty universal across improv, scripted work, camera work. Like, people want to see they get a little taste of what it's like to work with that person.
Yeah. I think Casey and then Roy had something too.
I just want to say that what I've learned is so helpful in directing an audition is to be direct. Like, if you're watching somebody in a scene and you think like you could cast them if they could play more bold, don't just like wait for them to maybe do it or try and give them a vague setup of like, you're the boss right now and you're in charge, go. I think you say like, I'd love to see you be more bold. Here's the setup, and maybe set them up in another scene or in that current thing, you pause it, give them the notes, because I mean, that's ideally what you would do in a rehearsal. It's just like, it's terrible to be directed if somebody's giving vague things. It's not like you want to be mean and be like, you need to get in there and be bold, but it's like, you give people the opportunity to receive the note in the best way they can hear it.
And then do it.
And then they either can or they can't in the moment. And some people are like, well, maybe I could have if I knew in advance. It's like, well, it probably means you need a little more time trying stuff out in a different arena before that, moving on to that because we only have 2 months of usually 1 rehearsal a week to put up a really big themed show. So you have to be able to think quickly, work fast, work in a big ensemble, take direction. And that takes time to learn those skills. I try to tell newer people, like, don't be upset if you're not cast in the bigger thing yet. Like, enjoy all of the steps. They're all important, and they'll build you over time as a more well-rounded improviser for when you take that big step than a really quick leap.
Yeah, Roy, do you had some?
Oh yeah. So just to go back to one of the things, the original question was like, how do you stay unbiased when there's people you're way more familiar with versus people who you maybe aren't as familiar with? And also, one thing is that's a double-edged sword. You can be familiar with people's bad habits as well as their good habits. So that's true. But also the other thing is that we usually have their experience in their spreadsheet. So we don't know them at all, but we know that they trained. They've been doing improv weekly for 6 years, and they just moved to town. We do take that into consideration. And the other thing is that sometimes it's when those people that you don't know super well like really nail the audition. That can make a big impression. Just to I just want to name drop a little bit. When Margaret Hunsicker auditioned for Austin Secrets, I didn't know her very well as a performer at all, and she understood the tone of the show, and I was like, well, she's in. And then when Mallory Schlossberg auditioned for Death by Musical, I think she had just moved to town, and she obviously had skills. And so it can kind of play to your advantage because there's this kind of factor where you're like, I don't know this person at all, and they seem to understand what the show I'm trying to create is. And
just one more point I want to add in terms of who you cast and why if you are in kind of a position of power within your community, if you're running a theater, if you're well regarded and people are very interested in being part of your productions, and it's kind of seen as something that people want, that might be competitive, I think it's really important to take chances on people sometimes. Not just go, because you could, there's probably a dozen people and you could cast them in every show and it would always be a great show. It would always be super solid and you could always depend on them and they'd always give you great performances and the audiences would always love it. But your community is never going to grow that way, and you're never going to develop a broader diversity of talent and
perspective.
Perspective and experience, which I think is really, really important. Because if you keep going to that same well of the people over and over, that's going to dry up eventually, or it's just going to get stale. And so taking chances on newer people, if you see a spark, if there's something interesting, if you think they might be a good fit, and it's maybe between them and someone and have worked with a lot, like take the chance and bring in someone new. And some of the best players in the Austin community I always feel really excited when I cast someone in their first production and then they become a huge part of the community. It makes me feel good. And it's really cool. It's really cool to build your community that way.
Yeah, when I said like a person can tank a show, I wasn't like, oh my God, don't ever take a risk on somebody. It's just that if you have an instinct, a really strong instinct that somebody has destructive behaviors, in addition to some talents in a rehearsal, it's just, or not rehearsal, an audition, it's something to pay attention to. Like if somebody's kind of like makes demeaning comments to other characters and a little bit insulting or demeaning, like that's kind of stuff to kind of be like, oh, even if they were charming, if they are, have sort of destructive behavior, it's something to watch out for. I don't think we always did.
To the red flags for sure. No matter how talented someone may be, sometimes they're the red flags that mean they are not good for a show.
But yeah, there's I'd say if you're trying to think of like who are the newer people you want to put in or how do you want to take a risk, mostly we try and take a risk in diverse ways with Hideout shows. And that's just straight up how we have to be right now because, if you're a white man, you have to be pretty damn good to get cast in a big show because your competition is really high and there's a lot of those voices on stage. Not that we don't ever, there's definitely newer white men who are cast in things.
Even straight white men.
Even straight, like it happens. But you have to kind of know your place. If you're a woman of color and you put yourself out there, I'm more likely to be like, you know what? I want to make this work. I want those voices on stage. I will even kind of know like this person's going to need more coaching, more support. And I want to make that happen because just waiting for somebody to be helped on their own who's already being pushed down every other place in their life, it's just like, we cannot wait for them to lift themselves up. It's like, let's help people when we're in those positions of power. That's such an important message, Valerie. Thank you.
Do you want to just go down the lists, or is this somebody have like particular questions they feel really excited about?
Let's see if there's anything up further that pertain to what we were talking about. Okay. This is so many good questions.
Here's a pretty general one of just what are some things that you know now that you wish you knew when you first started out directing shows?
I think. Rory, do you have something? Okay, you made like a face.
I think for me, in terms of casting, I wish I just like trusted my gut more in casting. And I have a tendency to be very empathetic and like, if someone feels like I don't know, sometimes I'm like, well, maybe I'll give them a chance. But I was like not giving chances to the people who are really strong and also needed those opportunities sometimes. So I don't know, just when you kind of think about the analytical parts of the show, but then also really trust your gut with casting and pick the people who light you up and make you excited to work with them, whether you know
Yeah, I
them
think-
well or not. Like, the people who spark the fire are the ones that you're going to want to spend 2 months with, not the people who seem like a good fit on paper necessarily,
Yeah.
or you feel like you owe them something for some other reason, but just the people that are going to delight you to spend 3 hours a week with are the ones to choose.
And I know anytime, and this is just experience from doing things over and over and over, but similar to what I think Casey was talking about earlier, anytime I've had an audition or sat in on an audition and there's been someone where I'm like, I don't know about them, this thing might be a problem. Anytime I've had that thought, it not only might be a problem, it was a problem, and it presented itself pretty quickly in the rehearsal process. It's like, yep, I should have trusted my gut on that one. Yeah, and that's not to say people can't change, but I think in the individual audition process, if that thing that you might be concerned about is already presenting itself, then
you have to ask yourself, like, can you handle that thing? Because some things you totally can. Like, sometimes you're like, it's
Right.
worth it to have this person,
Sometimes it's
even
worth
if I
it.
have to take them aside every once in a while and be like, hey, some new people, you sometimes have to be like,
That's true.
hey, you're doing great, but like, here's some little tips or
Don't
whatever.
be so blue on stage or whatever.
Yeah. Like, we don't, we're not cussing that much in the show. If that's the thing.
Yeah. Roy, did you have something?
Yeah, a couple things. One is, like, a lot of times the issues that I feel like you can take a chance on are like they aren't necessarily like bad things about them. It's like, well, this show is mostly sincere and heartfelt, but it actually won't hurt the show to have a couple of goofballs in it. And it's like, I wonder if this person can be heartfelt. It might be a problem that they can't, but if they can't, they're still going to be a delightful addition to the overall ensemble. But the other thing that we kind of realize is that if you have that thought of like, well, maybe if I work with them, they'll improve in time for the show. Really what you're doing is you're helping them get to the place they need to be for the next show. It's not wasted effort, but it may not reap dividends in the show that you're doing in particular.
So something else I think that I've realized more and more the more I direct is your tech people are a part of the show. The people who are doing your lights and your sound and your set design and your costumes, and they need to be part of the process and part of the collaboration. And you can kind of decide to what extent that makes sense.
My doorbell just rang. I think my Home Depot delivery.
Oh,
I have to go answer it.
Okay. But yeah, like, don't take your tech people for granted. Really, I think you can kind of work with your onstage improvisers and your tech crew on two different streams, but you need to respect and collaborate with both of those groups.
Yeah.
And because, you find a good light and sound improviser and they will make your show magical.
Yeah.
And they have ideas, and if you can communicate your vision to them as strongly as you communicate it to your onstage cast, they will add so much to your show.
Another thing that relates to both casting and something that I wish I'd known, and again, this might just come with experience, like you might not be able to do this until you have a certain amount of experience, but be okay with casting shows with like specific types in mind. So if you like Roy was saying, like maybe there's a show that is very sincere and heartfelt but needs a couple chuckleheads. Be okay with casting X number of people that you think just have this one particular skill or group of skills, and another group of people that have another group of skills that when combined, they're going to make the show a lot better. You're not trying to cast a troupe where you want everyone to be as well-rounded as possible. You're not trying to make a baseball team of 9 pitchers. You're like, you want people that can serve the roles that will be that will help the show. And I think that's something that I didn't cast with a mind towards initially. That as I do it more and as I'm just around more, it feels obvious, especially when you think of how casting works for scripted work. It's obviously you're looking at certain types and certain qualities for certain roles, and while we might not know what those exact roles are in an improv show, we should have a rough idea of what kinds of things it would be.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I didn't share any of my wish I knew yet.
Oh yeah.
There's a guy unloading stuff from a van.
You wish you'd known that that was coming right now, so we could have rescheduled.
They don't even let you
this.
pick a time. They just say between 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. or something. It's like an insane swap. Anyway, I guess he would have left if I didn't answer the door. He was walking away. Anyway, so one of the things that I learned over time with directing is sometimes you got to learn to, I guess, phrase things in different ways and sort of realize your different members of your cast's ability to hear things, because not everybody can respond super well in the moment to like side coaching. Some people really need to take notes. Some people need to hear something at the end. Some people need like two references. You know, there's just like, I'd say like, be careful of getting stuck in the way that you normally speak or explain things for somebody with your type of brain, and try to learn how other people in your ensemble or your team best hear things, because that's how you'll be able to best convey the show, because what you want is everybody to be on the same page. So what I've learned is like sometimes you have to say something 3 different ways for people to hear it. And I think early on I was just like, I'm gonna be really bold, I'm just gonna plant a flag this way and it's gonna say how I say it. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, what, I don't know. But like now I'm just like such a more like careful director, and such like much more like holding things like this, you know, not like I'm being precious about it, but I guess
It's a very caring and generous way to direct. Yeah.
I guess that's what I found, is being really caring and generous is it's yielded much better results than being a hard ass or being a stickler. And it's so bizarre when I leave the improv world now, because it feeds in on itself. Like the more caring and generous teachers you have, the more other teachers are like that, the more directors you have that are that way, it rubs off on everybody. So the Hideout's kind of like a feedback loop. But
I mean, is it more satisfying to leave the room knowing you were right, or leave the room knowing that you gave your cast the tools that they need to do the show you want?
Yeah.
You know, it's like if you feel better walking away going, I was right and the show is garbage, great. I guess that's satisfying to you.
Well, it's like sometimes too, like the other thing I was going to say is a perfect point off what Kareem just said, which was like, be open to the show changing in its look. Like you come in with your strong vision, but sometimes that cast executes your vision in a slightly different way. And if you hold on too tightly to only your vision, you can end up in this really uncomfortable thing where it's like sometimes, like especially when we were doing more serious shows, sometimes the cast would just really want to play for a bit, and I felt like, you know, I should have let them play more in certain shows, you know, or found more instances for that. That's what the cast wanted, and there could have been room for both, like the super serious scenes and super playful scenes. I just remember early on we were just like, it was like in the Wild West days of doing more dramatic, serious improv, and no one was doing it. So we really held tightly to that vision.
I think that's a great segue into our next question, which is how do you juggle the collaborative element of directing? Like you have your vision, but your cast has their own ideas and visions too. So how do you strike that balance? Which, Casey, I think you just gave a great explanation of how you approach it. I feel like I'm pretty uncompromising in my vision a lot of times because I have very strong visions for my shows. But I think the thing that I've learned is to know what parts are non-negotiable and then let the other parts be very flexible. You know, like, and also, you know, don't take yourself too seriously too, because it's just an improv show. But if you are really clear about the things that like make the show what it is, and without those things, it's just not the same show and you're not inspired and you don't feel satisfied by the end point. Know what those are and communicate those really clearly to the cast. And then you can work with the cast to find out how you get to there.
That's literally your job as a director, is to identify what those things are that make the show so that you are able to collaborate in the room. If you can't do that, like if you don't have the ability to articulate to yourself what makes the show, you can't express it outwardly. And then it's going to feel like a very squishy rehearsal process, which might produce work that's fun, but you won't really be sure how to provide the next direction because you don't know where you're trying to go.
The ultimate goal with these shows is that they have a very distinct voice and that they are unique unto themselves, and whether you get there through tone or the vocabulary of what kind of moves the cast is making and the technical improvisers are making, you do want to get there. I think the hardest part for me is when other people on the cast or the crew are really excited about an idea that doesn't fit with what I want out of the show. That is the hardest thing to put my foot down and you know, say like, well, actually my vision for the show was that it be looser, you know, and not not as polished as you want to make it, or vice versa. And what I found is that if I feel that very strongly and I don't communicate that is what leads to resentment later on, because we might make a good show happen, but I'm like, even though I'm trying not to, I'm quietly resenting them for not executing on what I wanted, when ultimately it was my job as a director to be clear in my communications and to put my foot down, you know?
What was I gonna say? I got distracted because this guy has a van where his side door won't close, and it just keeps opening like this and then closing for like the past.
Please keep giving us a play-by-play.
2 minutes. That's kind of,
there's some other questions that aren't.
oh wait, I had a thing. But,
okay. Oh, about the collaboration.
So the other thing is make sure to let your cast or your fellow players know what's working well. Too often a director does not say what's working well. They only say what's not working, and that's really hard on a cast over time, because then they don't know what they are nailing from the genre or the show or the tone or the style or whatever you're going for, and they're only like, oh geez, I gotta do these 5 things differently. It reminds me of when we were doing Grand Misery, this improvised Les Mis show, and it was so hard because we were singing all the dialogue and like it was just like there was no time. And I remember before, like it was like a week or 2 before opening night, and I was just like, this show can't happen. Like it's not gonna work, because the 2 directors, every time they'd watch, they were just silent in the audience when there was like 15 of us on stage, and they'd just be like this the whole time. And then at the end, they'd give a huge list of notes, and it just went on like that for a few weeks. And finally, I think the cast was just like, how can we possibly do this? And then they started laughing, and they're like, oh, we probably should have told you guys this. You're doing so much right. This is amazing. I'm having an amazing time watching it. And it was just like, after that, they started giving more of that kind of feedback regularly. And it just helped so much, because I genuinely thought like, none of this is working. It's gonna be awful. Like, and then it actually ended up working out, but that's what I have to say.
Yeah, cool. So there's some other kind of general improv on Zoom questions, but I will skip those for now and stick to the production questions.
That might literally be another topic a few weeks from now.
We want to talk about the stuff we have 15 years of experience with, not 3 weeks, which is selfish of us, but you know.
Let's see. If there's any other.
Here's something. Did we already answer this? As someone auditioning, what are good ways to get feedback that one might have had a red or yellow flag occurrence in the audition? And how can people casting shows encourage that feedback loop?
So I'll start on this one. It's honestly pretty difficult because if you're holding auditions, it might last 4 or 5 or 6 hours. And you're having people come through in like 30 or 45-minute chunks. And then you get an email from them, you know, several days later that says, hey, if you have any feedback on my audition, I would love to hear it. And like, you know, unless I take extensive notes, what I have is a few spots of memory and mostly a general overall impression of them. Like in the moment, I was able to write down like my feelings about them, but like getting in depth, all that stuff kind of goes away like a dream. But I do get requests for feedback enough that I've streamlined my system. I now take all my notes on a laptop. I have a color-coded Google Doc, and I write down the details of the scene as much as I can while still paying attention to the scene. Now that being said, if someone asks me for feedback, I don't offer feedback on auditions unless someone asks for it. And then also generally when I put out the cast list, I say, hey, I'm happy to give feedback if I have it. Please give me a few days, because casting a show is hard. And if I get inundated with requests for feedback right away, I want to give up and go sleep for several days. So I'm like, give me a few days to recover. I'll give you some feedback. So first of all, you have to ask. And second of all, if you ask, I will literally tell you everything that I can. It'll probably be a compliment sandwich because I don't want to just dump on you. But if there was something that you did, like you were shouting the whole time and you kept your scene partners from getting a word in edgewise, I'll let you know that.
Yeah, I think, as a director, most people who audition are fine. I don't have a lot of feedback one way or the other. Most of the time, a lot of people just aren't ready for the show. There are always a few who are like standouts and you're like, yes, they need to be in the show. And most people are just kind of somewhere in the middle, and there's not really much feedback to give. But I think it is a real kindness if people ask to give them feedback, especially if you see patterns in people, if you've taught them, if you've seen them in other shows, or if you've seen the audition several times, and they're always like making things too sexual, or not giving their partner any stage time, or anything that's just a bad habit that you see that's getting in the way of them doing the improv they want to do. It is a kindness if they ask to be honest with them and let them know that in a way that's just very gentle but straightforward.
I mean, and this takes more time and effort, of course, on top of something that's already more time and effort. But I know when I teach and then when I direct, I try to give actionable, positive notes rather than don't shout so much. It would be work on balancing the volume of all the players on stage, or something that's so it's not, don't think about the elephant. It's like a thing they can actually do rather than try to not do.
Let's see. And also, somebody pointed out that people who are worried about whether they have red flags usually don't, and the people who do have red flags are completely not aware of it. So
it's usually true, or they just can't hear it. I've known people who you give them that direct feedback and they refuse it. They're like, no, I don't do that. It's like, if you can't take direction, good luck.
It's like, cool, then I have one more red flag to tell you about.
It's a major one. Like, you have to be able to take direction, and honestly, the more you can practice saying thank you and taking the note, even if you're like, I don't know, it's hard for me too. Like, I say this as somebody who like is an arguer, or just like, I think more now is like clarifier. I'm just like, well, what does that mean? What's that? It's hard for me to just be like, thank you, but sometimes I can do it. But the more you can just be like, yep, got it, great.
Yeah, and if you don't understand, ask questions, but not to win an argument, but to understand. I think there's one more question. We're close. I think we're close to an hour, but there's one more question I think that's a good thing we haven't really touched on that relates to this topic, which is, could you talk about how to integrate new members into a show and a cast that's already been performing together? And I think Roy can.
Yeah, I have one very specific bit of advice, which is, because the show I direct, called Austin Secrets, is in its 9th season, we regularly bring back. It's kind of shooken out that it's like a 2-to-1 ratio of people who've been in the show and people who are new to the show. So like roughly 8 pre-existing cast members and 4 new cast members. Pre-existing, I don't know. Pre-existing medical conditions.
Returning.
So something we've done for the past several years has put people into pods. Sometimes they're the same pod every week, and sometimes they're a different pod each week. But the way it works is, before we do anything at the top of rehearsal, we have the newer cast member get in a group with two experienced cast members, and they just check in. They review what they did last week, or maybe they even talk about their week or how they're feeling in the show, so that people who have some experience can kind of be like, oh yeah, when I started the show 2 years ago, I was feeling this way, and I totally get that. You'll get over it, but if you do this and this and this, and it's not even something I have to have like an active hand in. I don't like spy on all the different groups. I just want the cast to kind of like lift each other up because they're coming from different places. So.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, you can pair experienced people with newer people, and it's great because then you give the experienced people, they get to share that wisdom. Yeah, even if it's not a returning cast situation, you can kind of think about the balance of people and even pair them up before you get into the rehearsal room, and then just tell people what their pods or pairs are or whatever. It's almost like that, like sorority, big sister, little sister kind of thing. But like that happens. They have those in so many different places in life because they're nice. It's great to learn the mentor role or the leader role, and to get to have that mentee mentality and leadership. So it goes great both ways in a cast, and I can't believe we didn't think of it sooner because it was really a big problem where it's like the director can't be like directing the vision of the show, directing all the technical elements, trying to think through everything, troubleshooting in the moment, and then also like being everybody's mommy and daddy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big thing I've started saying as a director to my cast was like, I don't want to be your mom. Like, if you have a problem with another person, unless you absolutely can't, like they're harassing you, which I absolutely want to know about, but usually it's not that. It's like, talk to them about it. Like if they keep blocking you in scenes, try going to them first. And I have people practice giving feedback and saying like thank you and things like that at the beginning of the process, because I want us to all be empowered as adult creators in what we're making and not feel like we have to look to the director to figure out everything for us. It's just it's too much on the director. It waters down the process, and then we can't really get into the good work that we want to do if we're like mired in like personal conflict or issues of the ego of like, am I good enough? You know, am I as funny as so and so? Am I as smart as so and so?
Well, I think there's some more good questions coming in, but we're already at an hour.
I can keep going.
Yeah, you okay?
But does anybody need to leave from PGraph? I mean, they can.
I got
I have
nothing.
I have some more time.
Before we get to the next question, which I think is a really good question, I wanted to talk about something that no one's asked about yet, but I think is just a fun little sidebar, which is naming a show. And specifically, I was talking with Courtney Hopkin about it one time, and Courtney and I have the opposite way of approaching a show. Sometimes I will come up with the name and then create the show around that. The name is one of the first things I have to have for a show. Whereas Courtney's like, oh, that's absolutely the last thing I think of. Like the shows, we need to print posters tomorrow. I need to think of a name for this show. So I thought that was a funny way that
I have a really good method for naming a show. So if you want the secret, here it is. Valerie, you probably know what it is. I tell Valerie about the show and I say, Valerie, what should the name of the show be? And then she tells me, and it's like, yeah, duh, that was obviously the perfect name for the show.
Sometimes I crowdsource online and then I'll pay the person who gave me the title a little bit of money.
Yeah.
Like I'll say, I'll give, $15 to whoever, comes up with the winning name. If I can't think of it, sometimes it'll just come to you. Yeah, but a lot of times I'd say name the show something that the audience can understand. If it's really esoteric or artsy, even though that might be cool, I'd say that makes it harder in the marketing of things, which is really
especially
important.
When we have such a limited marketing budget and bandwidth. It's not like we have months of lead up and millions of dollars to inform an audience about what's coming.
Yeah. It should evoke the feeling of the show. It should have something that people can attach to. If you're doing a straight up like homage to a genre or an existing property, just like do a variation on that so people know exactly what you're
share some of my designs for various things on the screen share.
Cool.
If you want to
we can keep talking while you pull that up.
Okay, go ahead and show us. Tell me if this works.
Okay.
And the rest of PGraph, I don't know if my screen
I'll see what happens on the stream.
It says you cannot screen share while the other participant is sharing.
I guess. Okay. Yeah.
The Kareem has to stop the music and then it will let me.
Okay.
Stop the music, man.
Here's a good question. and I think we have different ideas on this, so this will be a really good one. When you direct, do you also play in a show, and how do you navigate the balance of being a director and a player?
That is like the really big question that a lot of people have different opinions on. I think I'm just going to be diplomatic and say, hey, it's up to you as a director to make that call and to be kind of upfront about it.
I personally can't do it. I can't. When it's a new show, a new concept, something that I feel very strongly about, I can't split my mind to both be a player and be not in my head and be a director, which is almost all in your head, analyzing everything as it's happening. Like it's too much for me to do it. And in the interest of being able to give people clear notes and direction, I don't play when I direct, which I kind of lament, because then I end up creating these shows. I'm like, oh, I love all of this. And this is like my tone that is like, that have like massaged all these people to be doing this thing to please.
Sorry, I can't both. I don't know what I'm seeing right now, so I don't know what I'm showing.
Oh, you can't.
I can tell you. We're seeing the Peter Pan poster, and we're seeing your browser tabs.
Is it just in my window that it's showing up?
No, it's taking up most of the screen, and then we're appearing as we speak.
This bar over here.
We're seeing your screen. So whatever's on your screen is what we're seeing.
I'll send you a screen capture of this.
and then you'll see that as I open it.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I realize, like, look.
Yeah, whatever you're seeing on your laptop is exactly what we're seeing.
Okay, so and that's what everybody on
the
Twitch
tabs
is
on the top.
My Twitch froze, so I can't even look at it. That's why I can't tell. But
it's good. Just trust it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm a lot like Kareem. I have a really hard time being in the show and directing the show. And for me, when I have a vision, I'm completely satisfied by seeing that vision created. Yeah. And I don't need to be in it to feel satisfied with the world. Sometimes I end up being kind of a host or narrator role in the show. Like when I directed A Bedtime Gory, at first I didn't want to be in it at all. Yeah. I just wanted to see everyone else create my vision for me. I like being the little puppet master. And that one was so visually motivated because Edward Gorey's main thing is that he's an illustrator. And so it was all about the visual style and the tone, and he has such a strong tone. And we had shadow puppetry where we like built this huge screen that took up the whole stage. And I was just so excited to see that come to life. But through the rehearsal process, we realized that it needed some kind of, I had this idea that there would be kind of like a storyteller, narrator, host character in the show. And we tried it out with other people doing it, but no one had the vision as strongly as I did. And so in the end, it worked for me to be that kind of guiding voice from within the show. And so I stepped into that role.
Yeah, I usually
I know you have a different idea.
The shows that I'm in, that I direct, not always. Is that true? No, I did direct and write a scripted show that I did not perform in, and that was great. But that was nice because I was wearing a lot of different hats. Usually, if I'm going to put in the time to create a world, I want to play in it. And I usually like to have a co-director or assistant director who jumps in and out of that role with me, so we can always have somebody who has their eyes on it. That's really nice, but it can be tricky. Maybe one day something will come along where I don't want to play in it, but for now, if I'm going to get enjoyment, I don't know, it helps to have that adrenaline rush of playing in the world. I guess if somebody hired me for a good amount of money, sure. In that case, hell yeah, I'll just sit in the audience. But if I'm not making much money, then I want the benefits of the performance high and the collaborative nature of playing on stage. Maybe that's what it comes down to in some ways, I don't know if it's enough for me to sit in the audience and watch them pull it off. Maybe if it's a student show or something, then definitely. It's interesting.
It's funny because for me, like if I've put all the time and work into creating something, I want to experience it as an audience member. Like I want to see it. And that's what's really satisfying for me, is to like get to experience it completely in that way from the outside.
And I just can't do it. Like I can't do my job as a director if I'm also on stage or in the wings trying to figure out the beat to enter. Like there's so many competing parts of my brain that it's like I can't.
Yeah, I regularly, I will often invent a role, like Valerie was saying, for myself that is either director or host. With Austin Secrets, I sit behind a desk the whole time and kind of guide the show that way. But I do love playing in a show I'm directing. It all feels the same to me. Hosting and playing feel the same. But I think the type of show that I would just jump into and play is a show that is intentionally like loose and playful. Like I remember Death by Musical, I kind of forgot to tell the cast that I would be also playing in it until it was like preview night, and I was like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm playing in this show. But the cast we had assembled and the format we had done was, could incorporate that sort of energy without too much trouble.
Yeah. And then of course, when PGraph does a format, it's different because we're all kind of directing collaboratively and we're all in the show, obviously, together. And so it's one of us may have had the inspiration for whatever format we're doing and kind of help lead rehearsals, but we're all creating it and discovering it together. We usually don't start with as strong of a vision and as like precise of a vision. We're just like, oh, hey, this would be fun. Let's figure it out together.
So yeah, hopefully people have been able to see some of these sort of marketing examples. And this is just on my website. If you're like, I can't see it, you can go to caseybeeler.com.
Remember that show we did called Your CBD Solution?
Hey, this is my graphic design portfolio. That's a logo. The logo that I designed exactly as Jimmy wanted for his CBD shop in Amarillo, Texas.
Awesome.
But Jimmy lives here in Austin. So.
Yeah.
And here's something little. We do a lot of web graphics as well, but
yeah. And the poster design is a great way to sell the potential audience on what your show is through the tone, not just in the name, but like you can kind of reference other visual imagery. And Casey is really good at kind of pulling in elements to sell what the show is with the use of her, the font choices and the colors and the layout and everything.
Then, we have a couple, here's what the stage looks like for one of the Hideout shows. So this is Orphans, probably obvious, but you didn't get it.
Casey, I still love the set design for Deed So Dark. I know I was like, this is what it needs to look like. And you were like, okay.
It was like hanging like rusty shit from the back of the stage.
Yes.
And some rough wood.
Yes. Thank you for helping me pull that off.
It is very satisfying to do, because basically in improv we have to create a set that can be malleable for the other shows that happen on it. If we can make a set happen at all, sometimes we don't have that in the budget for a Hideout show, or it's very minimal. But it's always usually set back a little bit from the stage so that there's plenty of room to play and malleable space for both like the imagination and for the players on stage. I feel like it needs to be malleable.
That's a really good point, because unlike a scripted show where you know exactly what everyone's wearing in every moment, improv costumes have to kind of evoke the world. But sometimes you're a woman wearing a dress, but you might, depending on the show, you might, like in Dickens, women play male characters a lot, so you're wearing a dress, but then you put on a coat and a top hat and now you're a man.
Like the photo I'm showing right now, this is from Death by Musical. You can see the musicians over here. But they're wearing black base outfits, and I think she had just thrown off her apron. She was playing some kind of mom, and JR's thrown off his jacket, was playing some kind of dad. And I think it was like some sexy parent moment, but they had the black base outfit on underneath, and then they put stuff on top of it. And then we had like this spooky forest set in the back, even though there were like, I think, in a kitchen in this scene.
Sexy parent moment.
Yeah, sexy parent moments.
Like we all understand what that means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's the Savage Swords show.
Yeah, and then some shows are a lot more constrained. Like when we did Everything and Nothing that John Bolden directed, it was pretty much the space you saw was where the action took place. The costumes people wearing is what they were really wearing. It was a very like small and contained world, and so it could be very specific.
Yeah, you can see in this image, or I hope you can see, there's a teacup that Troy is holding.
Yeah, all the props were real props. We didn't mime anything. It was an improvised Chekhov show. That
was so fun. Here we have a little shot from Kareem's Noir from 2011. And we had some real props for that. So you see that Troy has a real prop cigarette.
And that set, I love that set.
Me too.
Stage. So much.
Yeah, this was our upstairs stage at the Hideout, which is much smaller than, this is back before we had the downstairs stage. So there's kind of at least in my set design photos, I used to repaint this backdrop over and over. This is a Charles Dickens show. This sort of map of London.
The Noir show was one of the only times we actually like turned it into a specific single place.
And there's a window.
So good. I love it.
With the reverse lettering, windows back here, and the door had like a detective door sort of thing. Here's that show I mentioned earlier, Reform School for Wayward Girls. Look at Valerie.
Ooh.
And a sexy teacher.
Yeah.
Looking great. So it just depends on the show and the budget, but a lot of this can be, you have to have a painter who's willing to work for pretty affordable rates.
Yeah,
for some of this stuff, but
you can also do a lot if you don't have someone who's skilled as a painter. You can do a lot with just like color and fabric and maybe shapes to kind of evoke the mood you're looking for.
But also hire painters, like
yeah, if you can afford it, hire painters.
I mean, like nobody does that, but it'd be cool if or try out your own like projected scene backdrops that you paint. But there's also just like a black stage with costumes, on it is also very effective. You don't need to have a backdrop necessarily.
Yeah.
I think costuming can do a lot. So I'm gonna stop sharing that now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the Hideout's aesthetic developed because Casey was there and her talent is as a painter, and so that was like a very natural way to use that for set design. If you have people who are more like three-dimensional and builders, then maybe your set designs are more about set pieces.
Yes,
they are more like
builders,
colored or textured and less the hand painted imagery. So if you have fabric people, maybe you have beautifully draped fabric in different combinations that kind of set a tone. So use the talents of the people that you have in your community to create something that works for you.
So we've talked about this in another thing, but Casey, what you were saying about the set design and how it evokes the tone of the show reminded me, there was like a pivotal moment early in the Hideout's history where we met with Robert Ferris, the editor for the Austin Chronicle. It was Ferris, right? And
it was Ferris. Yep.
And he basically said that this was like over 10 years ago, and there was already too much improv happening in Austin for the Chronicle to basically highlight it, unless there was.
It was close to 15 years ago. Honestly, it was a long time ago. It really was.
Yeah. How did he put it, Kareem?
I don't remember how he put it. All I can remember is what I took away from it. But I think he basically said, like, we need to know specifics of what your show is. We can't just promote that you're doing improv. I don't remember exactly what he said, but what I walked away from that with was an edict at least for PGraph, that because we were doing runs of shows, we had a weekly show. Basically, if we can't take a photo of it and put it on a poster, it's not a show. Like, that is the simple thing I walked away with it, because an audience needs to see the thing and see the photo and know what the poster image is going to mean as far as people playing on stage. Like, just saying like, hey, we're improv, and like, it doesn't work. Doing a cool band photo of everyone looking kind of neat it doesn't tell you shit. So yeah, like that was my takeaway, is like, if we can't take a photo of a thing, the show, for the purposes of the audience, doesn't exist. So that was kind of the big thing, and I think that kind of ballooned into everything else that we did, trying to make it very specific and very very specific to the show that we're doing.
And Roy can share this link to PGraph's website, where we have a page of all of our different styles and like a little picture and a tiny blurb. Just
Shared.
for that, if you're interested, since there's so much, there's too many things to talk about.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
in a
some
way.
of these.
Casey, I have a really important question for you before we wrap up. Did the Home Depot guy finish his delivery?
Oh
He
yeah,
did.
the chat audience wanted to
And maybe
know.
I'm being too paranoid, but he wasn't wearing any kind of gloves as he put everything on my doorstep, and he just got things out of his own van, which, I guess that's how they're doing the deliveries, but it looked like his own vehicle. So for now, I'm just letting it sit outside. It's just yard stuff, because it's springtime in Austin and it's getting crazy. Man, it's almost like there's too much to say, but
No, I love creating shows. I just want to wrap up with that. I guess it's just so satisfying to me to have an idea and have some parts that are really clear and sharp, and some that are very fuzzy, and bring a group of people together and make the fuzzy parts clear and sharp, and then create something really beautiful that can only be done with a group of people. I love it so much.
And you can always start small, start small with like just a couple people, put a show concept together, do it for one night or two, and just go from there. I mean, it can seem really intimidating, but it doesn't have to be a big production. It doesn't have to be a big show run to try something out, because sometimes that's costly and it takes a lot of time, and you can build up to that sort of stuff. Or if you just want to put on that big thing and learn from it in the moment, like, do that too. I mean, it will be a huge learning curve if you're like, you know what, my first thing out of the gate, I want an 18-person show, and I want to do all this. I'd say fucking do it,
Yeah.
It does not have to be perfect.
And if people are interested in doing some kind of concept that involves music, I know that Tosin and Ammon and Natalie and and Ryan did a musical improv Q&A a couple of weeks ago. It might be archived somewhere on Facebook. I know they had it streaming on Facebook Live. And I got to listen to some of it, and they had some really great tips for working with musicians as a director for your musical show.
One thing that also I thought of that has come up once in a while. So the way the Hideout does things and the way PGraph does things, they're very related. As PGraph became more and more involved in the Hideout, our style and our approach it cross-pollinates, right? This is just what we do because the four of us happen to be story nerds, and that's what really speaks to us. Not everyone is like that. I realize, as we've traveled around and taught, some people just don't care and don't have it in them to give a shit about story and genre and taking a deep dive. Like, everyone isn't going to have a book on film noir and on westerns and on samurai films and a glossary of Charles Dickens and Jane Austen words so that the Jane noir sounds better, or a book of Feydeau French farces, because some people just don't care. And if you don't care, that's fine. But if you find a group of like-minded people who are similarly obsessed with how stories work, that makes it a little easier, because people are willing to buy stupid books and read them.
I'm wishing we had Courtney Hopkin in this Q&A, because I think she has a really great eye as a director in the way she does things. And she comes at it from a different place, I think, and creates really beautiful, amazing things. And I love that she was like, you know what I like about noir? I like the way they talk. Let's just do a show that's about the way they talk in noir. And that's basically the important part, because that's what I love. And that's what's important
to her, which is funny because those, the noir I directed years ago and the noir she did, to me, as someone who loves film noir, they could not be more different. I think to an audience member, they're probably very similar, but to me, they're like night and day, which is the great
part. It's
funny,
the improvised noir, virtual noir we did, that we invited Courtney to play with, I thought was a really good synthesis of both of those types. Like
Yeah.
some really stupid play, but then also keeping
Yeah,
a
yeah.
little more of the structural feeling.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
so many ways
I
to
think you find it too. You find it even if you're just a cast member, you know, you can get a little bit into that headspace, but you find the things that delight you about it and you hang on to those, and everybody's going to have little different things, but all together that's what makes it feel like that genre. Like you don't have to nail all the aspects as yourself, or even as a director, you don't have to teach every single thing, but if people look at the source material or whatever the inspiration is, if they're working on themselves and their skills, that'll come together on stage to do so many beautiful unexpected things. And that's the coolest thing about doing this sort of work, is the surprises are endless in the process. And it's a very juicy thing for a creative mind. As a performer, as an improvised technical improviser, that's how I should put it, as a director, as a production designer, you know, you can find such fun, juicy things to play with and kind of see, like, how do we make like our costume set fit in our budget, work with what our improvisers have, work with our stage setup, but also allow us to like freedom and flexibility. And sometimes you have to throw stuff out at the last minute, like the dress rehearsal. You're like, okay, I thought we were all going to work with these things. That's not working for the show. Throw it the fuck out. Like that's another big tip I would give about directing a thing, is like, be willing to just slash an idea that you were holding on to if it's not fucking working. Just be like, nope. Like I've had set stuff where like we started to put it up in the space right before the show opened, and then we were like, nope, it's not going to work, take it down, trash it. Like, and it's like sometimes you might spend hours on that, or hours on a concept, spend a couple rehearsals on one idea, everyone works really hard on it, and then you're like, actually that's not working, we're going to cut it. You just you have to, I mean, like, and try to find it fun, you know.
Even in scripted theater, that's part of the process. You spend a lot of time on something that you think might work, and if it doesn't work, you let it go.
You just like hold on tightly, let go lightly. And that's true on stage as you're performing. Like you might be like, oh, I'm gonna come into the scene and do this thing. You come into the scene, something else happens, you have to just be like, all right. And it's the same with directing and creating a process. That you can take so much that you know just as an individual improviser and take that on to the larger scale for big creation. And that's so cool.
Yeah.
We're obviously going to talk about this a lot more.
I think it's
like, I honestly thought most of the conversation would be about the meat of like, oh, how do you come up with what aspects of the genre you're doing do you put into the thing? But it was like, oh no, we're going to talk about casting a lot.
Yeah, I feel like we've just kind of skimmed the surface.
We can do another one, you know,
we'll do more
down the line, or you can give us suggestions for what you would like to see Q&A.
Honestly, if Cream just did a book reading for our next one, I'd be down with that.
Read to me, Papa Cream.
But
let's see.
Oh, also shout out to Cariel, who's been watching a lot of our shows and is super active in the chat, which I really appreciate. He's got his own Twitch channel called Custodians of Justice. They've been doing a lot of virtual improv, and they're doing a show tonight at 6:30 about talking vegetables. At least one of them has figured out how to just make it so that the virtual backdrop takes up most of the screen except for their lips. So they can do creepy things where the lips are superimposed on a piece of fruit. So I'm excited about that.
Also, it's very important that everyone knows the definition of blood pudding. This is from this. Blood pudding, blood pudding, the same as black pudding. Okay. Black pudding, a sausage made with blood and various other ingredients. The blood spread on the outside, giving its name, sometimes called blood pudding, or in Thomas Hardy, black pot.
Black pot.
There's your little Dickensian.
I think, didn't we all have blood pudding when we were in England at Jonathan Monkhouse's house?
Probably. I think he did a proper English breakfast. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. Kareem, was that from the book What Jane Austen Knew and Charles Dickens Fucked? Oh.
That's the one. Yeah. It's they're referring to the same thing, actually. This it's a horse.
Oh, geez.
Oh, someone said, oh, I know how to do that. I haven't done it, but I know how. And I thought they were referring to making blood pudding, but they were referring to the mouth on a fruit trick.
I know how to do that.
Oh, I know how to do that.
amazing.
Yeah.
So our next thing is we have a PGraph show
Tomorrow night.
tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Should we tell them what we
Yeah,
decided?
let's tell them. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're in here, you get the the
Yeah, I think-
first peek. We're doing
Yeah.
improvised Roald Dahl tomorrow night,
suggested. Mhm.
as was suggested in our show last night. So thank you. And then on Saturday at 3 p.m. we have a show with our friend Chris Mead from London.
Mhm.
He's an excellent improviser, has also traveled the world and just a great chap.
I hope his
Fine
flight
fellow.
gets in on time.
Oh God, thank God we don't have to worry about that. And then Saturday night we're gonna do a show at 7:30 with a bunch of special guests, TBD.
Yeah.
TBA.
Mm-hmm.
But
TBK.
TBDA.
to be decided and announced. So thank you for joining us for some of this. And
Yeah.
we'll see you all soon. To keep staying safe and sane. Take care of yourselves.
And you know the deal. If you enjoyed this chat and you have the means, we do sell tickets to our shows online. You just go to hideouttheater.com. You'll see you can buy a ticket to any show. They're all $5. It goes to the same place. But if you buy one to a PGraph show, we'll know it was for us, and that makes us feel good. Also, I realized just now, we'll tell people this in other shows too, but it's a new month, which means I think all the Twitch subscriptions roll over. So if you subscribe to us with Prime before, I don't know if it's your own personal month or if it kicks back over on April 1st. So I don't know. If you have the ability to subscribe again, subscribe again. And we have a book. Oh, it's 30 days from when they subscribe. The book is called Do It Now, and it's our thoughts on narrative improv. Precious little of what we talked about today, actually, because it was more about the act of doing it rather than producing it. And you can get that at our website.
Yeah, and there's also an ebook version of it available.
And I know there's not much of a chance that you haven't seen this before, but in case you're still in the chat, I'm gonna paste the instructions for subscribing with Twitch Prime. It's a big mess of text because if you have Amazon Prime, it's free for you, and we get $2 to $2.50, I think.
And thanks to Sig1 for subscribing at tier 1 today.
Ooh.
Saw that earlier in the chat, and I wanted to point it out because that's freaking great.
Yeah.
It is.
Oh yeah, somebody did ask. Oh, I wonder if they already left. So they said they tried doing blind line, but it got real hard with the constant stream of suggestions. Do we have a good setup for that? And I'd say that one way of doing blind line is to get all the suggestions. You'd have two people turn off their mics or whatever. I don't know, not look, gather those suggestions, and then you could put them over into the chat room. So you could grab them from the Twitch chat, put them into the Zoom chat room, and have them work off of that, or you could feed it to them through the Zoom chat. I think sometimes it's tricky to crowdsource a suggestion. So
yeah.
I know that.
Yeah. I think one of the things we're realizing about Zoom Improv is that a lot of times it would be very useful to have some sort of director, administrator person who's not performing in the show, but can watch the Twitch feed suggestions to the performers, even do music, stuff like that. So if you have someone who is interested in that, that might be really helpful to you if you're doing
especially if you have some technical people who would like to stay involved. I think that'd be a great way is to get them in a sort of moderator role or the live producer type role, because it is tricky. It's hard to get that shit together, but if you have the means and the time, try that out. Just I don't know, try it out and
try everything out,
mess it up.
All right, y'all, we're gonna end this or else we'll go on forever. You're great. Hopefully we'll talk to you soon, and see you maybe tomorrow.
Bye.
All right, stopping the stream.